In the previous unit, which is Unit 3, we covered Chapter 4 and Chapter 5, where in Chapter 5 we dealt with supporting hard drives and other storage devices. In this unit, we will be dealing with Chapter 6 of the prescribed textbook, supporting input-output devices. The first learning outcome, we first learned to describe the general approach technicians use to install and support input-output devices. The input-output devices can either be internal or external. The following basic principles apply to support both the internal and external devices. Adding new devices to a computer requires installing hardware and software. Even if you know how to install an input-output device, always follow the specific instructions of the product manufacturer. Some devices need application software to use the device. For example, if you install a webcam, you will need to install also webcam software to record, edit, stream, burn, and monitor webcams. A device is no faster than the port or slot it is designed to use. For example, a video card in a PCI slot will not work as fast as a video card in a PCI Express slot because of the different speeds of the slots. Always use an administrator account in Windows when installing hardware devices. Problems with the device can sometimes be solved by updating the device driver. You can use Device Manager to manage devices and their drivers. Install only one device at a time. It is important to make sure that the device is working and all is well with the system before you move on to install another device. Device Manager provides the first diagnostic and troubleshooting tool in Windows. After you install a new device, Device Manager gives you many clues if something has gone wrong. It lists almost all installed devices and drivers they use. You can enable, disable devices and install or update the device drivers with Device Manager. When deciding which wired or wireless connection standard to use for a new device, the speed of the transmission standard is often a decider. We now look at the connectors and ports used by peripheral devices, starting with the USB connection and ports. When it comes to USBs, you have the Super Speed Plus, known as USB 3.1 and 3.2. You have the Super Speed USB 3.0 and High Speed USB 1.1. USB devices can be plugged and unplugged without first powering down the system. Another important factor about USB cable is that it has 4 wires, 2 for power and 2 for communication. We are now looking at USB connectors and ports. In the picture, you can identify the USB-A connector that can connect to a USB-A port on a computer. Next up is the USB-B connector that can connect to USB-B port on a computer or a device. Next up, we can see a USB Mini B connector that can connect to a USB Mini B port on a particular device. Following up is the USB Micro A connector that can connect to a USB Micro A port on a particular device. Next is the USB Micro B connector that can connect to a USB Micro B port on a particular device. Next up is a fast form of USB with speeds up to 5 gigabits per second, also called USB 3.0. In the picture, notice that it's color-coded blue. Here is the USB-A connector that can connect to a USB-A 3.0 port on a particular device. Here we see a USB-B connector that can connect to a USB-B 3.0 port on a specific device. Here we see a USB 3.0 micro B connector that can connect to a USB 3.0 micro B port on a specific device. In the picture you can see a video card and a motherboard with VGA and the DVI ports. This shows when it comes to ports, they can either come built in on the motherboard, that is onboard ports, or come with expansion card. In the picture you can see a motherboard with onboard ports. A video card can use a PCI or PCI Express slot on the motherboard. That is PCI Express times 16, which is the fastest slot. We are now looking at the connectors and ports. Video ports that a video card or a motherboard might provide are VGA, DVI-D, DVI-I, DisplayPort, HDMI, HDMI Mini, and multi-purpose Thunderbolt ports. VGA, known as Video Graphics Array, is a standard for the video graphics adapter that was built into IBM's PS2 computer. New LCDs and video cards sport fully digital connections, the most common of which is the Digital Visual Interface standard. Most DVI connections on video cards these days natively support analog signals. You can use a simple DVI to VGA adapter, for example, for connecting a VGA cable to a video card. One of the variants of DVI is the DVI-D. The DVI-D only transmits digital data for digital displays such as CRT screens. The DVI connector or port supports both analog and digital signals. The advantage to DVI-I is that you can add a cheap DVI-I to VGA adapter. One usually comes with a video card and connect an analog monitor just fine. Many Apple Mac desktop models use a DisplayPort connection for connecting to a monitor. DisplayPort can transmit digital video and audio data. The best connections for outputting to television are the High Definition Multimedia Interface, known as HDMI, connectors. HDMI transmits both digital and audio. Other peripheral connectors and ports include eSATA, Lightning, BNC, RG6, RG59, RS-232. The eSATA drives use connectors similar to internal SATA, but they are keyed differently, so you cannot mistake one for the other. With the iPhone 5, Apple introduced its current proprietary connector known as the Lightning connector. It replaced the older 30-pin connectors that Apple used on previous iPhones and iPads. RS-232 is a standard port recommended by the Electronics Industry Association for serial devices. RS-232 provides a legacy general-purpose expansion port for installing peripheral hardware. Coax cables are rated using an RG name. There are hundreds of RG ratings for coax, but the only two that are covered in this learning outcome are RG59 and RG6. Both standards are rated by impedance, which is measured in ohms. Impedance is the effective resistance to the flow of an alternating current electrical signal through a cable. Both RG6 and RG59 have a 75 ohm impedance. Both coax cables are used by your cable television, but RG59 is thinner and doesn't carry data quite as far as RG6. A very common type of coaxial cable connection is a BNC connection that plugs in and then twists to lock. BNC is commonly seen on coaxial connections. The plug-in and twist mechanism help to secure your connection. If the cable is connected, it can't be easily pulled out.